Well, hello. As we're sitting here at the LTV on this beautiful afternoon, indeed, February 27th, 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and of course, the likes of you out there to make it your business to enhance and fortify the concept that rightfully so is so dominant and so effective and so dramatic and so helpful and so creative and so artistic, um, that as a no-brainer serves our community, the gatherings of communities throughout the United States of America. In more ways than one, my engagement with the concept of public access, which spans about 4 decades, directly through the use of being a part of LTV since the early days of Fraser Dougherty, God bless his soul, lived up to be 101, passed away not too long ago. Contribution initiated and erected and sent forth and elevated and dug deep into the consciousness of that need, the need for a stage to express your feelings, your thoughts, your reservations, and having friends like Steve Romm, that makes it actually easier because that level of intensity by way of allowing yourself that sense of, well, I'm going to be a part of the equation is made possible on the behalf of the capability of the other person that stands in front of you. And in this case, it's Steve Ram. I'm complimenting you, by the way. And even though he sometimes disappears as nowhere to be found, you know that eventually he will show up as he did now. And it's almost like somewhat of a weird guarantee that it's going to be okay. A weird guarantee that it's going to be okay, still, nevertheless, no matter what.
Hello, world.
And so I wanted to give you an example of what you usually watch on the screen when you see me late night. So I wanted to give you like a 2 minute thing because I was in the middle of saying that the equation that on the behalf of the need to get that the rightful space in order to accomplish not only a familiar goal but going by way of a familiar process. And you want to adapt it and readapt it, and you want to invent the importance and the understanding of the importance of it while it's in motion, and you yourself together with it in motion. So it's like a brief ins and outs on the behalf of that would suddenly make sense, and that was, oh, I just lost it, and so it really makes sense, and then it's, where is it, for God's sake, where am I? And then it really, really, really makes sense, back and forth, and you realize that and it doesn't matter which, whether it's just a lame job in the post office or standing in front of a wonderful canvas that you know you're just about to change the way people think when it comes to art because you're just so accepted and so influential and so capable and so skilled and so experienced and
Can I
so
leave and come
loving,
back in a
so
while?
caring. No, no, you. And in more ways than one, I'm speaking of myself. In the face of that availability, you find yourself deserved. Is that well put? You find yourself deserved.
Deserving.
Across from that,
Deserving.
well, deserved, because because it serves as a given already before you enter into that conclusion. But isn't it like incredible that actually you identify the need and you somewhat have enough information of knowing what it really takes, what it takes in order to even contemplate that you can attempt to make a difference or change, or and then when you're actually eh, deciding and you're like on the go, it's it's all the way from rewarding to scary to so many feelings that you realize maybe you're not the man that is needed for this task, or the person that is needed for this task. Suddenly you realize you lack so much experience. Suddenly you realize that talent cannot compensate for hours of engagement that brings experience, even to the person who never went to school, but he knows so much about the nature of the machines that he's working with. So the same can be implemented, and this, by the way, I know I'm making it long, but by the way, it's going into the first question that I wanted to pose to you, because I know that you spent enough time in the studio, enough time in front of the cameras, enough time with a joint in your head. Half of the time you wouldn't know even what's going on. But then at the end of the day, you created so much detail-oriented craziness, time-consuming, labor-intense, and you need the level of steadiness that you need and the focus and you and then you allowed yourself also to get high in the process and still keep that kind of no really and I'm serious still keep that kind of casual approach. Well, I'm doing it, but the one for the one that observes you says, what's going on here? So you know also how to rationalize it, and so it will better serve you in your own kind of journey. I'm sure about that.
Well, I've had the interesting experience. First of all, anybody that does the show for the amount of years that you've done it deserves credit because you show up no matter what. If nobody's here, your soliloquy is, at the very least, interesting. And the most important part is whether you watch it on Monday or you watch it on Thursday, it's a continuation of the same level of incomprehensible, much better, thank you. Incomprehensible something or another, which somehow seems to make some sense. Now it really bothers me.
It does?
Yeah, it's off balance.
No, I know because I didn't find it.
No, not that it's straight, but it's off balance. But
Is that
in
going to
the
interfere with
middle,
your train of thoughts?
it's now I'm totally confused.
Should I
just
should
as
I
I was
switch it back to the
beginning
way it
to
was?
calm down, now I'm my entire
Shall I switch it to the way it was?
yeah my
Okay.
entire being has been jarred,
No way, we're not going to allow that to happen.
and we can't do that.
This
I'm
is home.
skating on thin ice as is in
This
life.
is, no, but this is home, correct?
Yes,
See, that's what I like about us together. You know, we
there's a harmony. We
it's not
understand
even
each other,
harmony. It's
and we don't take it as criticism. We
we've
take it as this is just the way we see it.
we've been there,
And
we've done that. You know,
yeah.
we really were.
So I think over the last 2 weeks there were two nights that we caught you, and Lenore and I were watching, and I think we both turned to each other at the same time and said, "What the hell is he talking about?" And then a week later, you were on again by yourself.
Explain to everyone that was a compliment, by the way.
There was like no lapse. It like picked up right where you had left off the week before, and we looked at each other again after 20 minutes and said, "Still have no clue what he's talking about." But and then Lenore said, "But look at it. Watch his hands. He must be part of the mafia."
What do you mean?
Because his hands were going like like this and like this and like this, and we thought, no, this is the way a Don would talk. Well, in your own world, within the essence of who you are, and in your world, you are the Don, the head of what you do.
Each producer here is the Don of his own immediate stage, you know.
And that's to be respected. I mean, I don't take it lightly. Somebody who puts in, I could not put in the kind of time and effort that you put in just to this, forgetting your painting for a second. If you didn't even paint, just the commitment that you have to this, the guests that you have on, the questions that you ask, the shows that you run, is a major undertaking. And for that, you deserve a huge amount of credit.
I thank you.
And I mean it
for
seriously.
acknowledging it,
I
because
mean,
it means a lot to me. You know what? I'd like to be completely selfless and all this, but sometimes I love to hear it because it really portrays a reality,
it
a
is
real thing that's
the
happening.
reality is that if I turn on television, 99% of the time, you are here doing your show. And it may be snowing out, it may be raining out, it may be whatever the weather is, whatever's going on in the world, you can count. It's like a certain thing that you can count on, and it's you. And for that alone, you get credit. I think that
that's a very accurate portrayal. You know that,
and
the statement. I accept it.
Don't think for a moment it's not appreciated, because it is appreciated, because nobody else is doing it. Nobody's stepped in and said, "Well, I'm going to do the same kind of show on music," but it's not happening. You're here, you're doing art, and if a musician happens to come in who also paints and they're a musician, you can handle that just as well. I think that the relationship that has grown up between the two of us over the years, and the sense of trust that has grown up over the years. And it takes a long time to build up the type of trust that one has, that somebody can look at a painting or whatever the art is from another person, be able to make a comment on it, whether positive, negative, instructional, whatever, and the other person doesn't take offense, because it's very hard for somebody to open themselves up to taking um, the criticism isn't the right word.
No, I mean
Taking stock of where they are in life. Let's put it
controversy.
that way.
It's okay. It's really delivering good stuff usually.
And I think that in the relationship that we have, as far as our art is concerned, we've only learned from each other. It's not a matter of saying, "Oh, that could be better." That's a very negative phrase to start off a sentence with, telling somebody that what they're doing could be better if they did. That's not what it's about. Um, and I bring up the same thing that I brought up every single time that we have a meeting here, is I wish there were other artists that would say, I want in on this. Okay. The room should have 6 people in here. And we don't necessarily need the microphones and the TV and everything else, but once in a while, there should be 6, 7, 8 artists from out here sitting down, having coffee, or whatever it is, discussing where they are in their life, what they've done, people who have something to offer.
Yeah.
And we just can't get that together for whatever reason. Um, it's too bad, because it's everybody's loss. What somebody else has who's a really good artist to share, that you don't get, that I don't get, that they don't get, is a loss in the creative process.
Yeah, and you know what? I decided to allow to show Frank Sofo's work here. He passed away not too long ago, and they had this wonderful gathering at Ashwa Hall with his paintings. And so Sunday I thought about it, and I said, you know what? I wasn't close to him, but we knew each other. I knew him. I thought he was a good artist. I thought he was a good person. I thought it was a good energy to have in the community. Didn't say his last word, even though he lived to be 80, but a young 80. And so I said, we'll give them 4 weeks here to display at LTV. I thought that would make him very happy.
Right.
Every wall. And he's got nice full body of work. And I spoke to Teresa Lawler, and she liked the idea. And I'm kind of getting a little closer with Teresa and the Artist Alliance. Suddenly, it's just it matters. You want to kind of remember the days that we used to have passion towards the Artist Alliance. Remember
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
important it was. I think you remember
Look,
too.
I remember going back to, and we've spoken about it many times, going
When
all the way back
you,
to Saracen, when artists would show their work. I mean, it was for real.
yeah,
I mean, you felt not only invigorated but special
yeah.
if your artwork was on an easel and Lenore was talking about it, and you were putting your soul out there. You were putting everything you had out there to the public and to the people that were there.
You know
And there
what?
was no joke. You couldn't hide behind any mask and say, well, I did this or I did that. If you were asked a question about how did you get to where you are, or whatever the question was that was asked, you would literally open yourself up to being honest.
Yeah, yeah, and also I think, like, for example, if I was to be with my capabilities and experience now as I am, let's say in 1985 here, uh, it would be shocking to some people to see the kind of work. Do you remember the days of what's her name, the gallery in Bridgehampton? Uh, what's her name? Remember the galleries in the 80s and the 90s? Anyway, um, would be it was, we were closer to the era of in the time of when abstract expressionism was born. It was really much closer than we are today. 40 years ago was like 30 years ago in the concept of what they created, all the way from Pollock through de Kooning and the likes of them. So it was still conventional and almost like old fashioned a little bit. Even the that which was which was extremely modern was conservative, was shown in a conservative way.
There was also
Uh,
something very different about at that time with the galleries. The galleries at that time had connection with the artists. They
and they
reached out to
all
the
owned
artists,
great work of artists that were dead, but nevertheless, if you
but they
wanted
were
a Picasso or something, they had the work.
they had that, but they also were strongly behind the local artists and encouraged the local artists to get a show out here was not impossible. And along with that went the fact that not only did the gallery show your work, but they sold your work. And audiences, the people that attended an opening, I remember going to Vered years and years ago and going into Vered, and it was packed.
It was always full.
And not
Ah,
only that, things were selling, not only from people who were well known, but from local artists also. Things were selling. Same thing was true with Lee's on Tops. You had an opening the days before it was just artists and their friends. In the days that it was a gallery where the public came, the, it was a New York City gallery, a Soho gallery, and when you left the show, there were red dots on almost everything. There was an upstairs, a downstairs. Things were selling. It was exciting, and the art world changed for whatever reason, whether it was the economy or whatever it was. It just there was a growing separation between the galleries and the artists, and there was also, and this is not the fault of the artists, there was also a growing separation between the galleries and the public, in that the public was not attending the openings, the public was not buying, collectors were not going in. um, it got to the point, for being a gallery owner, got to the point where it was just a very expensive way of showing people's work for the sole purpose of showing it, not making money. And nobody can stay in business that way. Look how many galleries we knew from the 80s that have disappeared,
oh,
and how many artists don't even show anymore because the expense. And I remember not that many years ago where the old parish museum was in Southampton had a beautiful art show of really big canvases, and I knew one of the artists. And the second year they had it, he didn't have a painting there. And I said, "Why don't you have a painting here?" He said, "It cost me $1,000 last year to get a truck, to get the painting here, to get help, to hang the painting, and not a single piece sold in the entire show." He said, "I can't afford to do it again." And again, the second year, nothing sold, and now there's no show, which is a loss to everybody because all the work was really good. Falkenberg was in the show with his sculpture, his totems. There was just a lot of really good work, and the main attendance was artists.
yeah, yeah. It was, I now when I look back, I realize what it is that I got out of it. Now that I look, I cannot look with any other eyes other than the an artist's eyes. Because no matter what, I'll find myself in the studio every day. It's like this kind of guarantee. Suddenly, the sense of time is not so important. Yeah, well, I'd like to be able to be there for 7 hours without being bothered or disturbed. No, that's a nice thought. But then we learn to find ways to complement for it and to still, nevertheless, achieve the goals with whatever time we had. When I look back and I see, I used to dress. I used to dress for the occasion.
Right,
And
exactly.
everybody used to look at me. And now when I think about it, it's pathetic and sad. People used to see me and say, "Oh, Haim's got his going out to opening outfit."
But we went to,
So that was like,
when the tent shows first opened. It was a big event. As an artist, we knew galleries that send us complimentary tickets. It was not inexpensive to get in, but they were packed. The problem is that if you remember, I think there were 3 or 4 major tent shows, and they had galleries from all over the country, including Europe, that came to the shows. This was not inexpensive. It was sort of a Hamptons Art Expo in a sense. But what happened is that on very few occasions did any of the galleries sell anything. So if you figure in the expense, I don't know what the booths cost at that time, but I'm assuming that if you truck stuff in and everything else, I mean, Art Expo used to cost us just to get the space and bring the artwork in was $50,000.
Yeah, it was,
It was a different time.
and you know, and you also, you know, what aspect of it was very teaching is the fact that I, at least I wasn't there as an artist. Most of the years I was an observer. I was just like trying to see how I can fit. I loved going out, loved art, but I wasn't an artist. And then, you know, along the years, suddenly you realize you paying attention to the paintings. This you know, artists become familiar, and maybe you know the artist, you get to know the artist, you can associate people with their art. I did that a lot. um, I, I didn't have to I didn't have to be or to know to do anything as a condition to just go out there and be a part of it. You just get dressed, you take
Right,
it easy, you check out, you do your routine. Either you work your way from east to west or from west to east, you know, but you're doing it. You cover good ground, you meet a lot of people, maybe you meet some new people, you go have dinner, whatever it is. And then goes on and on and on every weekend, you know. And that
right,
ritual was solidly every weekend.
right.
It wasn't like Elaine Benson. Wasn't it like a celebration and a half?
I remember going to Elaine
Are
Benson,
you
going outside,
kidding?
and it was packed. And
Elaine Benson was the first. You know, I don't even know how I had the courage to you know when she had that group shows. One group show, one major one that, but you can submit with what do you call it, slides.
right,
Remember, it was very
slides. God, nobody looks at slides anymore. If it's not on a computer,
every
if it's
gallery
not
had a
digital,
slide machine.
you know,
But um, so Elaine was the one to have your art sent to for
right,
whatever, to show, to this, and I did the same. And people told me, you know, it's a waste of time, because, and then guess what? I get a phone call from Elaine, and she said there were some images there. Two of them I'd like to see in person. Can you bring it to the gallery? So then I told all of my friends, and my friend said, "You made it big. You struck big. She
right,
called you. Oh my God, she called you. That was a big deal."
right,
And then I went there, and that this happened really. So I sit there, and um, Kimberly Goff next to her daughter, much younger. I'm 25 years younger, and Elaine there, and I bring the artwork, and I knew something very well about my work. My work looks better in the images then, at least. In the images, it used to be like awesome. You see it in person, disappointing. I knew that about my art. It was real. So I knew that if when I bring these pieces, she wouldn't like them. She wouldn't say, "Okay, you know what, keep it, whatever this." I knew she would, but I went, and she looks at me and she says, "Listen, this is unique. This is original. This is yours. I'm intrigued by it. I'm going to keep observing you, but not for this time." Uh, And Kimberly Goff said, "I don't like his work, whatever," which was okay. I mean, you know.
right,
Um, but then you sit there with the uh, Elaine, and she's so generous with you, and she's just telling you, "Listen, you got something there, and worthwhile observing." And because you had something to show for, and I think that you're going places, kind of thing. She's telling you in her own words. So I started like when she said that, then I had a few moments of joy. It didn't spare me from any struggle or anything, but at least now and then I would remember it in crucial moments, and that would give me a little breakthrough because, you know, because you and I know very well, if you don't spend the time, those plans are not going to come to life.
right. I mean, I've worked with many galleries out here, and I would say that generally speaking, everybody that I worked with was really good, knew what they were doing, really tried to sell things. I would say 95% of the cases, they always sold something of mine. But then the market started to change, and the you couldn't get the prices that you were asking for. That people who put in a huge amount of work into their into their paintings or sculpture, whatever it is, uh, who had shows. Again, it's the same thing that happened at Lee's on Tops happened with everybody else. The audiences started disappearing and drying up. The buyers disappeared. The commissions disappeared, and suddenly people who were getting. I remember reading an article. I think it was in Dan's from two of the top artists out here who were really well known, wrote an article that they were lucky to get 50% of what they had been charging for their paintings because the market had changed so drastically. And I think, if you're an artist that and there's nothing wrong with it, that there's a combination of a painting for yourself and also painting or sculpting or whatever form of art it is with the expectation that at some point you're going to sell it. Otherwise, you're painting strictly for yourself, and it sort of piles up in your studio. And at some point, you go, uh, it gets to you, and you just go, why am I going to do another painting? I'll just take a break for a while. And there's no connection between your desire to create, which is now for yourself, and the desire to create because you would get a phone call from Arnie saying, bring in more paintings, everything's sold. This is total difference. It's a different world. And is that phone call, uh, it's sort of, what's the proper term? It's not only encouraging, it gives you the sense, and I think all artists would agree, it gives you the sense of approval that people are actually willing to put up money for your work. And you gain respect, you gain self-respect. It's part of why you create. Is the idea is that you want to be able to sell it, get it out to other people, have it in other people's homes or wherever they're going to put it. And unfortunately,
Yeah,
today, and I just read an article 2 days ago, the art market today is of highly collectible art, famous art. Could be a Rembrandt, whatever it is. People are buying it as an investment. They never even see it. It's never hung in their house. It's never brought out into the
but it's
public.
old news.
And this is
There were
what they're
periods
doing.
in the past that was,
This is part of their portfolio.
yeah, yeah,
And then when their agent says, "Well, you paid 4 million for it, it's now worth 6 million," and the person will go, "Sell it." They never even looked at it.
yeah.
It's the same as buying gold or silver or bonds or stocks or whatever it is.
But we're
It's
dealing with new art.
new art is
I'm speaking about you and I and myself and the likes of us. Okay,
it's
so
unfortunate that
I,
isn't
I
there isn't much of a market out there at
let's
this
just
point.
say that if some of those greats would be witnessing what we're doing in the studio, they will be uh, indifferent and maybe taken by what they see. Let's not we take it for granted. The primitives that you made, that is 20 years old, pretty much. That's it. I mean, only 20, 30, 25 years ago, you were like in the thick of it. In the thick
Even
of
longer
it.
than that.
Huh?
Even longer
No, no,
than
no, I
that.
know, but I'm saying still, I'm just trying to say. And then I go to the studio. Well, I shouldn't say I go to the studio. I am in the studio, like literally. It's not like I'm living, coming, living, entering, exiting. You're there, and then and like yesterday, for example, I did something. I had to highlight something with to close it in into a pattern, and it was blue. And I was at first I had so many thoughts, and then I realized it quickly enough. Where was my head? I really need to make sure that I'm the lines are pretty straight. Okay.
Right.
Suddenly, this came into this equation, and quickly enough, I was taken into the journey through the level of anxiety related into actually keeping the dignity of the craftsmanship. Yes, that's what say. Someone was saying and said he had a steady hand. Okay, that's I can give him that much. But then he picked up meaning. Why? Because you're actually doing a section of the painting that's in progress. uh, approaching completion, and it's a meaningful thing. when you go back and all this pattern will be such a crucial part of the story, of the storytelling. But then you go into that moment where you are actually wheeling and dealing into creating it to be that significant eventually. And you had basic struggles with it. Oh God, man, I mean, my hand is tired. Should I rest or should I just kind of trust my most? You think about it, but you don't stop, and then
But that's
before you know it,
part
suddenly
of
you see the end. You see the end. There's only like one stretch here, and then you go, and then it's like grand finale. You go,
Haim. If it came so easily to us, there'd be no fun in it. I mean, the whole point is that when you're painting, for you, for me, when I'm painting, if I got it right the very first time I put paint onto the canvas, I'd be disappointed. It's a challenge. Every painting is a challenge because there's something that I see in my head that doesn't necessarily mean it translates into just taking paint off the palette, putting it on a brush, and just painting, and it comes out exactly the way I see it. What makes it really interesting for me is that when I do paint something like that and I expect it to look like what I'm seeing, it doesn't. So it takes a certain amount of effort,
don't touch
sometimes
my chocolate.
invention. Hmm?
Do not
I
touch my
won't touch your
chocolate.
chocolate. I won't touch your chocolate. I have my mints. Don't go near them.
Yeah, this is white. I know you like white chocolate, no?
Love white chocolate, but I'll buy my own.
um, can I give you a piece of this?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, I thought you were gonna say no.
Why
This
would I
is
say
filled.
no?
It's filled with caramel. See?
Ooh, that looks
Are you
great.
kidding me or what?
Thank you. Nothing like a bribe.
No, shut up and let me talk.
Okay, go ahead, talk.
No, no, are you kidding me? I I would have loved to have lived in a little bit for a while in the era that you described, that you were a part of. Like New York City, late 70s, huh? Amazing, no? Forget
It
about
was
it.
a different time,
Oh yeah.
and the relationship. Um, I can't speak for other people. I can speak only for myself. But I could make a phone call at that time to somebody that I knew who would say, "Let me see your work." They'd look at the work and they'd go, "Hold on," and they'd make a phone call and they would say, "I've got an artist in my office. I want you to look at his work. He belongs in your gallery." And this is a gallery in New York City. And those days were possible. And not only were they possible, that's what you came to expect, is that you worked your way up from a local gallery to a better gallery to a better gallery to shows to all kinds of different venues to show your work. And the main thing was that you got to show your work, that there was a demand for your work. Um, I would never have gotten the commission to do the vodka bottle for Botanica vodka if they hadn't seen my paintings. The paintings were in a gallery. They saw the paintings and they said, "This is what we need for our bottle. This is the exact kind of image of the Hamptons that we want." It's all through the fact that at that time we had exposure through different galleries, and working with galleries was really a pleasure. People that ran the galleries understood what you were doing, appreciated what
So
you were
why
doing.
did you stop? All these things,
The only
they're
reason
timeless. You must agree. You must agree that it's timeless. That means you can sit today and utilize the same knowledge and inspiration and capability and experience that you had then today. I mean, what?
the
How come
art
it's
hasn't
not?
stopped. I still do.
Technically speaking, I can suddenly for a second I saw you as if you were, as if
What
you
it
were.
what has stopped is that I'll give you a perfect example. Lee's on Tops sold everything. Arnie would call me on a Friday afternoon and say, "Do you have more paintings?" And I go, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Well, we sold everything," and they walked out with it, but we have nothing to
Let me call
show.
Haim, see if he can.
You know, hey Haim,
Do you want?
can you
How,
do a couple of quick paintings for me?
oh yes.
So I would,
I
I
will
always had one or
refuse to
two
do
more.
anything less than 4 by 12.
So I would take the paintings down to him and he'd sell everything. And that was a great relationship between Arnie, Elizabeth, myself. Um,
I promise you, you
you
can
know,
do the same in the very same
but what
today.
happened was that Arnie came up to me one day after my having, and you were there, and a lot of other people were there, and he was having shows. He and his wife were having shows, but nothing was selling. And you can't run a gallery unless you have sales. It's not a charitable organization. And he just said, we're tired. It's costing us a lot of money. The only people coming in are artists and their friends, and they're drinking our wine and eating our cheese and crackers. We're closing the gallery. And they closed the gallery. And that was a huge loss.
But you know what?
And nothing replaced it.
It it's good to have wine, and it's okay not to have wine. It's good to have all this kind of touchy, chachi, mamchi,
But if
and
you're
it's
in
okay not to have anything.
but if
You
you're in business, you have to have sales.
listen. You highly recommend it for you to come with a good cup of coffee. Come for an hour and a half, and just walk around. And if you want, there's some sweet chocolate in every corner there, and maybe a joint here and there, and that's it. It's got to be raw. Yes, it's nice. It's nice because it's social to have
But
drinks.
they, from the
But
gallery point
but
of view, have to make sales
I
in order to
understand. I
exist.
understand. But I speak of the concept more of like go in. People toiled. Always remember the artist on the wall. The people that toiled and worked hard and really worked hard. Whether it's a solo exhibition or group show, each one showed two, three, four, five paintings. They really slaved for it.
Right.
They couldn't do anything other than exactly what they wanted and planned to do. This is what we need to think about, because then even if it's beautiful, even if you immediately realize it's beautiful, allow time to rationalize how. But if you're lucky enough to understand how, but it's the constant search for a level of appreciation. You want to know, who's this guy, what is this that I'm witnessing. This is the way art influences. You look at one of your primitive paintings that are kind of medium size will be like 5 by 6, and it's solid and it's completely thoughtful with the composition, thoughtful, considerate. Speaking, you're a magician and a mathematician at the same time, there, kind of thing, and you're just feeling comfortable throughout the process as a painter. You're telegraphing to everyone, don't mess with me. I know how to paint.
Right.
Even if you don't see complete, coherent, 100% realism, you'll see enough hints that will tell you that you'll make a fool of yourself if you try to challenge what's really on the surface, which is someone who knows what he's doing and happens to be consistent while he's at it. So this is it. This is a very summarized, basic description of how I think, since I saw you, because when I met you, you were still at that era where of restlessness. You were painting much more than today, that's for sure. But I caught you for about a couple of years where you were like in your whatever it was, late 50s. I don't
Well,
no no no. I mean
I,
early
I was
60s.
also changing from having done the primitives and having been very successful. And primitives
Yeah,
is
but
the
you're
wrong
talking about
term.
something timeless. This stuff is timeless. You cannot talk about this way.
I
It's
agree. I
timeless.
look at the big
You can
painting.
import it any which way you choose to. It will fit. It will belong.
I agree. I
And
agree.
why? Because inside the details are the. It's like the pluralism that, after all, I don't care how you describe our world, it's still got to be pluralistic, kind of, and somewhat kind of accepting each other. After all, there's no complete denial. The world is still existing. So when
The
you give it credit, you have to go all the way back to basics. I would have loved to see you go back to your basics as a way of introducing yourself now at your age into the nowadays of art and painting scene, so to speak.
I think that I think if you look at the big primitive that's
I'm
hanging in the
exhausted from
house,
this question.
I'll
That was
answer
like
you,
a
and then I'll be
mile and
exhausted,
a half.
and then we just take a nap.
It was a mile and a half question. Okay.
I
Okay,
think that the
sorry.
structure, when you were in the house a couple of days ago, and you look at the big painting that's hanging over the fireplace, if you
Solid.
look at that, and you look at the structure of that, and then you look at the landscape that's next to it, which is a totally different theme, totally different feeling, yet the structure is the same as what's in the primitive. And I use the word primitive loosely because it's not a primitive. Primitive, everybody thinks of Grandma Moses. They're flat, they don't have any dimension to it. There's a certain, which is part of the charm, there's a certain crude aspect to the painting technique itself, which I don't do. Everything is
Yeah, in your case,
layered, there's depth to it, there
yeah,
are all
but in
kinds
your
of
case,
things going on.
it will be just a way to describe your technique, just
It's my technique,
the
which is
offness of
right,
your
which is
technique.
different from what everybody else
Yeah,
did.
and it's also a little off, and it's
Right.
intentionally a little off.
And then I went into the landscapes, and now, and partially because of you, I'm doing abstracts, and I find them extremely difficult, much more challenging than the format of the quote primitive. Because if you think of the primitive, I never draw anything out. I was just looking at my phone recently, and they had a couple of artists on there, and they showed their canvas, and everything was drawn in with a pencil. I've never done that in my life. I just paint. I start either on the for me, I either start on the right side and the painting goes to the left, or I start on the left side and the painting goes to the right. And I sort of know what belongs there. Um, what I was getting to with Leaves on Tops is that when Leaves on Tops closed, it was a loss for all of us. And another gallery opened and took a lot of the artists that had been at Leaves on Tops. And the only comparison that I can make, and it's really interesting, when I was in the poster business, when we had our warehouse in Bridgehampton, there were certain customers that would order. We always ran specials for galleries. They'd order 10 posters. The vast majority of my customers would pick the best-selling posters. They'd pick Tarkay, Alvarez, whatever it is, Tadaro, whatever, and they'd buy 10 of the best-selling posters. Then there were customers that consistently ordered the worst posters we ever published. Nobody has a 100% success rate. So out of the 600 artists that we had that we published, they would find the 10 artists whose work just sat there. And they would order one each of those 10 artists. They'd always order the worst selling stuff. And that's what they liked. What happened is when Leaves on Tops closed, the group of artists that were chosen to go to the next gallery, the gallery ended up going out of business.
And the only reason why it did eventually go out of business is because she couldn't have seen that venturing to look for a younger generation, really younger, and
Not
I'm
only
talking
that,
about, well, wait, let me finish, like early 20s, that were springing then, and there, it doesn't matter. There's no one place where you can find them. It's all over the place. But being open, um, you would have seen, because the thing is, she got a little tired, because not tired physically, but tired from the fact of willing and dealing with the same people. At the same point, at some point, it's just everything looks the same, feels the same,
but
seems
she
the same.
all
She did
I don't
not.
want to mention
She
any
did not.
names.
In, she did not she did not think that she can change through that venturing desire to go and check things out, and almost being certain that once you complete the rounds, you're back in the gallery. And her
I also
listen,
think
also Lisa Antops was a woman that she would say something, it would be done. If she was influential, she was strong, she was knowledgeable, she was accommodating, she was polite, she was a nice person. So she could have used that also, and you could have seen a whole generation. The first generation, they will enter the zone of pure, straightforward industrial modernism. You know what I mean? But
but
bringing
it goes beyond
and
that.
alongside it, they bring the disciplines of tradition.
What I saw as a mistake, having been in the art business my entire life, what I saw as a mistake, which is your Achilles tendon, your Achilles heel, not tendon, heel, is that you don't pick art from your friends. You pick art because that's the art that will sell. And you sometimes have to say to certain people, I'd love to show your work, but it doesn't fit into what I have in the gallery. You don't pick art from friends. And that's when I looked in the window and I saw what was in there, I said, those are her friends who she's showing. That's the wrong approach. The approach is, and she certainly had enough experience, who leads on tops, to say, Dan Rizzi sells. Put Dan Rizzi in the gallery. Whether you like him or not, that's irrelevant. But his artwork sells. Put him in, not somebody else who you like, whose work doesn't sell. And it caught up with the gallery because we went through the same thing. There were plenty of friends that came to us and showed us artwork and said, I'd like to be published. And we'd have to say, it doesn't fit in with what we have. It simply wasn't the right thing. You don't want to say to somebody it's not good, so you find something nice to say about it and just simply say it doesn't fit in with our line of images. And I think that if we had based on picking art by friendships, we would have been out of business 2 years after we started. You have to pick what you think is going to sell, and we had an 80% success rate, which was almost unheard of in the industry because we found things from people, not only out here, but all over the world. You'd look at something, and if your reaction was, wow, this is something, not because it's great, we're in a different business. We're in a business that everything has to sell to stay in business. So you have to pick art very differently. And you look at it, we're looking at hundreds of pieces of new art every week. I was trained when we went to those tent shows. I could walk that whole tent show in 10 minutes and pick out the two pieces of artwork out of the entire show that, if done as a poster, would sell. It was that simple. That's your conditioning and training being in that business. If I was in a different business, it would be very different. When the movie came out, Flashdance, I think it was in either the late 70s or early
Early
80s.
80s, yeah.
Went to the movie, saw it, went back the next night, saw the movie again, and said, we got to do a poster. And we did a poster. We were just getting started. I think 82 or 83 is when the movie came out. We went to when the movie came out, our business had just started. We went to it. We both came up with the same exact image. We hired the model. We hired the photographer. We didn't have the studio at that time. We shot it. It became an overnight hit. We sent it out. This is before computers and everything
Of
else.
course.
We sent out samples to people, and as soon as they got it, they'd put in an order for 100 of them. It was fantastic. We had a hit. My competitor on the West Coast went to the movie studio and said, I want the frame where she's pulling the cord and the water comes down from the movie. He didn't sell any because even though it was from the movie, it didn't have the right atmosphere. Uh,
Yeah,
it
but
was wrong.
yeah, and also you had better capabilities too,
And
a
we did
better
something
eye.
that was spectacular.
Yeah,
The image to this day holds up and is beautiful. So that's the same thing with owning a gallery. Forget your friends, forget who walks through the door. Look at the artwork and think to yourself, if you own a gallery, you have got to pick the right kind of artwork that's going to make sales, or you're not going to be in business. And I think that's what's critical. I think Lee's on Tops, Arnie and Elizabeth knew how to put a gallery together, knew how to
Mary
pick art.
Liberator and
And there were a bunch of galleries.
Elaine Benson was impeccable. And then you had Vered Gallery all along that had a very radical way of looking at things, and for decades she really introduced this community into the freshness of New York City and the other major cities in the states and in the world. I was very taken by the fact that Janet Lear wanted, and I learned so much from her just from going to my studio. And she would go and dig deep and move all the art and hidden treasures. And you spending time with a person that you know nothing comes out of his or her mouth
Right.
without backing and knowledge, and they know what they're talking about. So you pay attention to everything. And one of the collections that was buried, it was those pieces that I hated. I felt like they're gonna show my shame Oh my, something terrible, ridiculous, though very. People don't know where it's coming from that I have those feelings. They're not going to walk around and say, "Oh, these paintings, he must walk around feeling sorry for himself," or something like that. They would say, "What's going on here? A puzzle." And people like puzzles, especially when it comes through their awareness that indeed what they witness is something that someone went to a certain place and spent that time required and showed the skills and utilized his abilities and made decisions and put things together and scheduled things and invited people and gathered this and came up with a thing and named names and doing little labels and friends coming, friends going, and he, still nevertheless at the same token, even though he will prepared to show you all these treasures, he's still, or she, still working. Still working. There's no like, I'm going to work now to create for this and I'm going to name it this way and that way and it's going to go this direction. It's something that you're doing independently of all these thoughts. And later on, you can choose to contemplate, to have uh, a third glass of wine that you shouldn't have and be tipsy and really kind of spend the next couple of hours like this. Yeah, you'll be able to afford times like these, but they still nevertheless go back to the same source that I'm talking about. That by going back to the basics.
See,
Your basics in the face of year 2024 is unbelievable.
what I would like to find that
Can you
would
see it? Can you visualize it?
I understand it, and what I would like to find is someone out there who could be an agent, because I don't want to take my paintings and go to the galleries. There's a level of professionalism that if you have somebody representing you, it's very different walking in the door. If you're an agent, having been an agent, having done that, representing somebody else, it's much easier to talk about the artwork, the good artwork, the bad artwork, etc., or be able to convince somebody that if you carry this artwork, it's going to sell and make you money rather than saying this is my artwork. How do you say this is a great painting? You can't. You can't approach a gallery owner and say I'm a great artist, you should really be carrying my work. It's not the right way to do it. An agent can walk in who represents you, show artwork or show a digital portfolio. People don't walk in with printed portfolios anymore, or just say, go on the computer and just put in Stephen Romm paintings. And then they look at it and they go, wow, here are 30 paintings right there with a bio and everything. And then they can say, I really like this, this, and this. Could you bring the real thing in so I can see what it looks like? But you need somebody to do that. You can't do that yourself.
Stop abruptly, flex your muscles, make a fool of yourself, embarrass yourself, be the opposite of who you know that you are, and know that you can afford doing it because you're friggin' alone in the studio. Okay, you can jump with the tail between you. You can do, but you know that no matter what you do, how you do, how much you do, you're still going to do what you're supposed to do, which is painting. Straightforward painting will take place.
I,
That's
I want to spend my
who is
time.
going to know about whatever that he or she are going to know, if
Somebody,
anything other than the actual painting. Nobody will see you
but
jumping.
an artist agent doesn't need to know that.
I know, no, no, but what I'm saying, I don't even relate to. I don't speak about the agent. I speak more about our complete independence and individuality, and that's where it's going to come into the equation of really making influencing, making a difference. You know, almost in inevitable way. It's like, because you experience that moment in the studio, and in those moments when they find themselves out, it's a guarantee that people will have the reaction that you yourself, that created it, had it, felt it, realized it. There's just no way that you're gonna in real life suddenly realize that it wasn't what you thought it was. It's just so we need to be able to preserve it and because there's going to be another painting, another painting, another painting, another visit, and another visit, and another time, and another time, all the time.
But
So, in that sense,
it
that's
I
where.
have maybe a different mind approach. When I finish a painting, and even in the process of painting, I've explained to you, there's that moment where you pick up the brush and you put the brush into the paint and you're about to touch the canvas, and all these questions arise. The first of which is, do I know how to paint? And, there's that moment, just a fraction of a moment before you touch the canvas, where self doubt, all the things that an artist feels about, you look back at the last painting you did and you go, it's really good painting. I can do better. And then there's that panic, that fraction, a nanosecond between the time that the canvas and the paintbrush meet, and all of a sudden, as soon as the brush hits the canvas, you're out of the room, you're in another space, you're gone, and you're watching yourself. Lenore took a photograph of me, which is my favorite all-time photograph. You don't even see my face. It's my cat sitting on my shoulder, and I've told you about it before. My cat is sitting on my shoulder. Her paw is on my arm for two
That image
hours.
doesn't leave my mind,
Two
by the way. I
hours.
know, I love that.
Lily sat there, and we, and I have to say, we are painting. And it's like all I'm thinking about is her. I don't know what she's thinking about, but she's as happy as can be. She's purring. Her foot never left my arm, and for 2 hours we painted like that. And I found another photograph where it does show my face more from the side. I don't like it nearly as much because the now I remember the name.
We're running out of time. Yeah. Okay.
I was trying to tell my friend earlier today who the artist was. It just came to me, Magritte,
Okay.
when I saw the show in New York.
Yeah.
I never liked Magritte's work because I thought his painting technique was terrible. But when I went to see the show in the museum and I saw all the things, the painting technique was irrelevant. It was the conception and the conceptual
Yes.
concept that he had of
And
doing his
and
paintings.
because we have the technical knowledge of what it really took in order to get to that point and to be able and to succeed and to everything the way we witness it, then we're humbled. We sit back and we say we're witnessing greatness to a certain degree, to a certain extent, and we know better not to benefit from it. You know what I mean? We, of course, we benefit from every inch of it, and we find ourselves if you're going to the studio or to your place of work or your shrine, you will eventually go there and suddenly realize that you have extra things with you that you just picked up on the way, knowledge, recollection, and experience, a smell, something, a noise. So you know you're going to use it, and you don't wait for it. You don't wait for that to happen. You take it and you utilize it. You put it where it belongs. You know.
If
I
you want
really,
a humbling moment
yeah,
in your entire life, if you want a humbling moment, you go to the Tate Museum in England and you walk
you
in
got
and
15 seconds.
you look at the Turners and you go, I don't think I'll paint anymore.
And you know what? That's a great
But you do.
statement. Yes, of course, with vengeance. After the fact that you contemplated that you will be nowhere to be seen, suddenly you come with a wide noted
It's just
declaration,
it is such a
opening, and all this.
it is such a shock to your system.
We're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday, and as much as we're here this afternoon of Tuesday afternoon, February 27th, year 2024, here with the Hello Ocean. My name is Haim Mizrahi. Here with me, Steve Romm. Thank you, Steve. As
Always a
usual, I
pleasure.
love you. I appreciate it. Thank you. We're having the group art show this for the next 5 weeks about, and we'll give you more information about the opening and whatnot. And we have Fanny Wallin, we have Ellen Colcord, we have Liz Sloan, we have Julia Chirokova, we got Joyce Raimondo, and we got Josephine Wuzjacek, and we love you, and we'll see you soon.